Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here. So my name is Vinayak Pal, and I was raised by a single Indian mom up in the Bay Area. And a big part of my upbringing is Hinduism. She raised me to be a good Hindu boy. And cows are sacred animals. So when I was growing up, she told me, cows are holy. I was like, okay, got you. Cows are holy. I go to kindergarten the next day. All the white kids are saying holy cows. Like, oh, it's holy for you guys too? And then I go back home. Ma explains how cows are a spiritual animal. I was like, okay, got it. Cows are spiritual. Go to cafeteria the next day at school. My buddy Alex is eating ground beef. I'm like, how can you eat spirituality? This must be what you guys call soul food. And then I go back home, and Ma tells me, if you eat beef, you're going to die. You know, and I believed her. And there was this one commercial playing that night on TV. It kept going on over and over. And I thought it was sponsoring the last meal for every prisoner. Turns out it's just Burger King. And then I go to school, right? And it's lunchtime. They're serving something called a hamburger. In my head, ham isn't beef, so I'm good. And I take a bite out of this thing, and all my friends are telling me it is beef, and I am crying. I am crying because I think I'm going to die. So I run to the principal's office. He's confused. He calls my mother up, and she's like, what is happening? I'm like, Ma, I ate beef. Why am I not in hell yet? She's like, oh, I was just kidding. That was my first Santa Claus is not real moment. Now, growing up Indian is either I was an engineer, a doctor, or I was adopted. And and since I'm a stand-up comedian, my mom just calls me a Pakistani. And she really wanted me to be a doctor, like really badly. Like from 5 years old onward, she expected good grades for medical school. And I remember once, I was in the first grade. I came back with my report card. Everything was an A except for one B. One B. She sees it and says, you're not my son anymore. And the only reason she took me back is because I'm a tax exemption on her tax returns. And the screwed up part was she didn't mark me down as her kid. I was her disability. And I remember when I told her, Ma, I want to be a stand-up comedian. She's like, why do you want to do that? And I was like, well, I gotta make people laugh. I gotta travel. She was like, oh, travel. One sec. She leaves the room and comes back with a brochure for Doctors Without Borders. So I went to high school in Oregon, and at my school they had a human rights club. I thought this was really cool, so I joined. And in one of our first meetings, they started talking about Stockholm Syndrome and how bad it is. I didn't know what the syndrome was, and they explained that Stockholm Syndrome is when you're being abused or kidnapped, and you establish a loving emotional bond with their abuser and kidnapper. And I was like, oh, for Indians and Asians, we just call that parenting. And like, human rights was so foreign to me because Indian and Asian parents don't raise their kids to be human. We are their free labor and retirement accounts. Like, you see an Indian dude on the streets named Akshay, it's just code for 401k. And there's 30 human rights, 30 of them. 2 of the rights are the right to not get tortured and the right to privacy. I'm like, damn, Indian and Asian parenting a human rights violation. Man. Now, being Hindu in the US is really cool. I think the best part is when people ask me about Hinduism, because not many people know about it. And when I explain Hinduism to people, I just say, look, we created yoga. So for all the men in the room, we created yoga pants. Lululemon, that's me. And another part about Hinduism is we have a bunch of gods, like 100 million of them. And I envy people who practice religions with just one god. Because, like, let's say a Christian screws up, one slap to the face. A Hindu screws up, that's 100 million slaps. And the worst part is, all my gods have 10 hands. I always found it funny when people asked me to swear to God in order to prove I was telling the truth. As a kid, I would always draw pictures of the Hindu gods during art class. And one day, I left the pictures on my table to go use the restroom. I come back, and my buddy Ahmad is going through these pictures. And Ahmad's like, Vinayak, what are these? I'm like, oh, they're pictures of God. He was furious. Furious, because he's Muslim. They can't have pictures of gods. They can't have idols of gods. Nothing. He told me, whoever drew these pictures is going to hell. Allah is going to send them to hell. And he looks at me straight in the eyes. Vinayak, did you draw these pictures? I'm like, nope. Absolutely not. He asked me to swear to God. I swore to God. He goes around the whole art class, pulling people's hair, breaking their crayons, tearing their drawings to find out who drew the pictures. And finally, I fessed up. I was like, bro, it was me. I drew the pictures. And he was like, but you swore to God. I'm like, dude, I'm Hindu. You didn't ask me which God. Dude, and, you know, as an adult, the whole Hinduism thing, like, it has a different dynamic with it, like the way I use it. For example, during my college years, my best buddy was a guy named Raj, and Raj is also Hindu. He was like, Vin, I am having issues with getting with women. What should I do? I was like, bro, let's see if Hinduism can solve this. And we thought about it for a sec, and I was like, yo, you know, the first book on sex, the Kama Sutra, was written by a Hindu. And he was like, yeah, it is. I was like, okay, so all you have to do, carry the book around you, open the page, find a great lady, and say, hey, can you help me practice my religion? The crazy thing is it worked. It actually worked, and that's the best part about being Hindu in the US. We can use our First Amendment rights to get laid. Now, I never dated a Hindu before, and a lot of my previous girlfriends, they want to get to know me more, you know, they want to establish more of a bond, so they want to participate in the religion a little bit. And I introduced them to the Hindu celebration called Lingam Puja. And for those of you who don't know, Lingam Puja is the celebration of the god of destruction and dicks. And and I think the god of destruction is the most appropriate one, because man, do I fucking slay. Now, like, it's funny to me because, you know, I'm a Hindu. I tell people I'm a Hindu, but there are always people knocking on my door talking about their God and their religion with the intention of converting me. I'm like, no, come on. If you're already at my home, I'm going to take you up to the bedroom and show you what Hinduism's really about. And that's the new type of conversion therapy. I used to have this one ex, and she tried to restrict what I can say in front of people. I'm a stand-up comic. We talk about things all the time, edgy topics, we're opinionated. So like sometimes I talk about sex, religion, race. She didn't want any of that. She said, Vinayak, all you can say is, hi, how are you? Shake your head in agreement. She wanted me to play a role no one would ever cast me as. A blonde. And for real. And all her restrictions never worked. I would always talk about what I felt. Once, one of her friends said, hey, Vin, do you like people who practice other religions? I'm like, absolutely. I love Christians who practice sex before marriage. And like one night with me, they go from Psalm 6:9 to Kama Sutra and 69. Now, you know, the way I was raised, I always made it a point to have friends from different backgrounds. So I have a lot of Muslim friends, and I learned a lot about Islam through them. There's two very important words in Islam. One is halal and one is haram. Halal means whatever's permissible in Islamic law. So, you know, the way they prepare their food is per a traditional Muslim custom. That's halal. Haram is whatever's not permissible in Islamic law. So sex before marriage or eating pork. Now, me being me, I asked my buddy Waji, yo, before you get with a girl, do you ask if she's halal? And he's like, no, we're going to haram in our bed anyway. And then I asked my girlfriend Nasima, I'm like, Nasima, before you get with a guy, do you ask if he's halal? And she's like, it doesn't matter, dude. All men are pigs anyway. And now, I do have a lot of respect for Islamic history, like the golden age of Islam. The people in that age invented soap. They made it normal to take baths every day. Concurrently in Europe, medieval times, those dudes, 2 baths a year. 2. And they had the balls to say they were racially superior. Like, imagine a racist coming up to you and be like, hey, I'm better than you because I smell like shit. What's the logic there? Oh, the smell of BO makes you the ultimate race? If that were true, congrats, France, you finally won something. Now, during that time, the Muslims and the Christians were having their own fight, the Crusades, and the Muslims ended up winning most of the wars. They won most of those wars and had to deal with that stench. That's amazing. Amazing. If I were the general of the Islamic group, in the spoils of war game to decide who gets what, I've been like, look, we're going to franchise a new company in Europe called Bed Bath & Halal. Soap so good, even the infidels will smell heavenly. Now, I was in Boston for a whole year for my freshman year of college, and one of my good buddies, his name was Danny, and he's a Pakistani Muslim. Now, if you know your history, he should have killed me a long time ago, and the thing is, people in Boston didn't know our cultural tensions, so he would use that as a joke. Like, Danny introduced me to his buddy Joe, and Joe's like, oh my God, you know Danny? He's such a great guy. Like, Danny's a great guy? You know, he killed half my people. And then Danny looks at me and says, I should have killed the other half. So I had to get him back for that. He is Muslim. He has to pray at Mecca 5 times a day. I asked him, what direction do you pray towards? He points towards the north. Mecca is in the southeast. When I explained that to him, he's like, no, it's not. Takes out his Mecca locator app on his phone. And he was like, oh, shit, you're right. Now, an Indian Hindu telling a Pakistani Muslim where Mecca is like a Canadian telling a Mexican how to make a taco and being right about it. And then I took it one step further. I was like, Danny, this is probably why you can't get with women. You can't find their holy Mecca. Now, Muslims and Hindus, we've been fighting for centuries. We've had our own turmoils. And I don't like it at all, but here's my theory behind our fights. I think Muslims hate how Hinduism spread as a religion. Because Islam spread through war, pillage, and force. Hinduism spread through yoga, meditation, and fucking. So when the first Muslim came into India, they were like, whoa, these guys do it so differently. That's amazing. And they wrote the first book about sex. Wow. And this book teaches them how to find the clitoris. Amazing. We probably should have read this before he decided to cut that shit off. Now, I know that joke gets a mixed reaction. And here's what I have to say. I am being very pro-clitoris right now. That is the most feminist Muslim joke you're ever going to hear. Now, my biggest culture shock from moving from Northern California to Southern California was everyone started speaking Spanish to me. And it was the Mexicans who kept misbrowning me the most. Do you know how hard it is to tell brown people you're not their type of brown? I was in a sandwich shop in downtown LA, just getting a sandwich. Cashier's like, hola, ¿cómo estás? I'm like, bro, I'm Indian. He's like, no. I'm like, dude, I am Indian. He's like, no. I'm like, bro, I'm Indian. He's like, fine. You can be Indian today. But I'm going to convert you. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, oh, you're just going to marry my sister. I'm like, what? You're going to give me your sister just like that? He's like, don't worry, bro. I got 10 more. Now, as a comedian, the way we get better is through attending open mics, which is where we practice our jokes in front of other comedians in the audience. And sometimes open mics have certain rules that you have to abide by. I was at an open mic where the rule was the comedian on stage had to roast all the comedians in the audience. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, this must be fun. And so I was in the audience. The guy on stage looks at me and says, hey, Forrest Whitaker lips. I was like, what? Forrest Whitaker? That what? And then I just threw it away because no one's ever called me that before. But then the next day, I got my headshots done. One of my eyes is bigger than the other. I'm like, God damn, I'm the Indian Forrest Whitaker. And if I had to be the Indian version of any black celebrity, it would have to be Will Smith, because then I could make Men in Brown 1. Where the first time ever brown people aren't the illegal aliens. Dude, I got a direct message on my Instagram from a Swedish bikini company saying, can you be our brand ambassador? Why? They're like, we love your content. I'm like, have you looked at me? I see your models. They're hourglass babes, okay? I am not like that. They're like, no, we still want you to be one of our brand ambassadors. I was like, this is horrible. And they sent me the promo code to get a bikini and said, please take a picture with our bikini, post it on your feed. And in my head, I was like, if I actually did that, posted it on my feed, the headlines would be saying, Forrest Whitaker joins body positivity movement. Where are the men at? Clap your hands if you're a dude. Yeah? How many of you guys are in a relationship? Yeah, that's what's up. You know, I've noticed, for guys, our worth in a relationship is totally dependent on how much our girlfriends could brag about us to their friends. And it's hard sometimes, dude. It can be. Like, I've had homies come up to me like, they're not going to approve of us. They're not going to approve of us. I'm like, dude, if they approved of you, what was going through their mind when they met you was like, hey, if you were single, I'd fuck them. And that just makes it harder. It just makes it so, because you need to have the body of Chris Hemsworth, the bank account of Jeff Bezos, and the commitment level of a pedophile trying to be a pediatrician. And dude, and sometimes women can get so comfortable in a relationship. Dude, I had this one girl, we went to the beach. We're having a fun time. And then a male bulldog just happens to be walking in front of us. And she just yells, hey, back off, I'm his bitch. No, that's not the politically correct term. You're my emotional support animal. And it was so much fun with her, though. Just say random shit all the damn time. Emotional support animal. I hate when guys watch a ton of porn and are like, hey, I want my sex life to be like porn. No, you don't. No, you don't. If your sex life was like porn, your girl would be banging a dude with a bigger dick, and you'd be the one recording it. I had another girlfriend talking to me. She's like, I want to compromise in this relationship to make it work. I'm like, compromise? Are you serious? Compromise is just another way of saying I'm not good enough. That's really what it is. You know, my biggest compromise in life was having to call them Pakistanis instead of Indian, and it just never goes well. You know, she wanted me to compromise on my love languages. My love languages are physical touch and words of affirmation. Hers is Stockholm syndrome, and which is also known as quality time. And when I mean compromise on physical touch, like, sex was horrible. It was really bad, and we both knew it, but she didn't really want to work on it at all, and it was just staying bad. At one point, I was like, you know what? I think cutting myself would feel better. And that's not the type of scissoring I'm into. I was in a 2.5-year relationship, and it was good for the first year, but the last year and a half wasn't fun at all. As I was doing more stand-up, she told me, Vin, I don't support you being a stand-up comic. And I was like, wow, I don't support you being a bitch. And for real, like, I wasn't the best boyfriend, I can admit that, but I did do a lot of things to make her feel special, right? Like, when she was in Toronto and I was in Boston, I took a 16-hour Greyhound bus just to see her. 16 hours in a Greyhound changes a man. I was hanging out with the Amish, and I liked it. And in Toronto, we go on a date. We're having lunch, and as we're eating, she says, Vin, you're 90% of what I want in a man. Like 90%? I'm a fucking A. That's amazing. That's awesome. And she was like, oh, by the way, I'm breaking up with you. What? Why? She's like, you're not my 100%. I'm like, are you serious? You're breaking up with me using a reason that sounds like a compliment? That's like if I went up to a lady, I was like, you're the woman of my dreams. But only in my dreams, because in reality, you suck. And if I feel like if my ex heard that bitch, she'd be like, Vin, that's not the whole truth. I'm like, you're right. It's 90% of it. Any of you into astrology? Yeah. Yeah? No, this is LA. Come on. I know. Really? Well, this is going to be fun. Look, I was raised by my grandmother, basically, because my mom, she had to go to work all the time just to, keep the family going. And my grandma was raised 2 generations prior to me, where superstition was just life. That's the way they lived. And so how that translated into my upbringing is I would have an American education during the mornings and afternoons. And then at evening, my grandma would give me a Hindu superstitious education. And by the age of 7, I was a certified astrologer and palm reader. So when I go to school and they're studying all the constellations, I'd be too busy predicting everyone's futures. Like, I ran a small business during lunchtime to read everyone's palms. I made millions in Lunchables, dude. It was great. And sometimes these kids didn't like their destiny. One guy Joey, was like, hey, I want to be in the NBA. Can you tell me if I'm going to make it? I look at his hand. I'm like, dude, you're not making it past 5 foot. You're not making your JV team. And he started crying. He tells the teacher. Teacher puts me on timeout. And I looked at her. I'm like, why am I in trouble if he's going to be a loser? That doesn't make sense to me. And then I gave up the whole palm reading thing, all the astrology stuff, because it was a bunch of BS to me. But then, as time went on, I had to apply for, high school applications for like Roman Catholic schools in my area. And in one of them, I said, I read palms, just as a joke. And when that school was doing their showcase, I was there. And one of the staff members came up to me and was like, oh, you're the kid who knows how to read palms. Can you read mine? I was like, this is what's wrong with the American education system. Grown adults asking teenagers for life advice. You want to know the worst part? She was the high school guidance counselor. Man, my mom's into the horoscopes too. She always reads mine and sends it to me out of love, and I understand, but it gets annoying. Once she called me and said, you need to read your horoscope. I was like, oh, okay, fine. I didn't read it. I just wanted her to stop talking to me. And, the next day, me and my girlfriend at the time, we break up. So I call my mother. I was like, hey, Ma, so I just went through a breakup. She's like, oh, okay, one sec. She puts the phone away, looks at my brother and says, hey, I told you they'd break up. Give me $50. Gets back on the phone. I'm like, Mom, what was that? She's like, it said in your horoscope, today you're going to break up. What? And I go through the horoscope and it said the exact date and time. I was like, is this stuff real? And then she said, keep reading. And I read and it says, every girl that I get with who's born in June, it's going to end up badly. And I look at all my relationships where the girl was born in June, horrible. I was like, this can't be true. Now, every time I take a girl back home to meet my mom always asks, so, when is your birthday? And the girl always thinks, this is small talk, it's going to be fine, you're just trying to make conversation. In my mind, I know my mom's thinking, do I have to stay with her the rest of my life? Or can I make another $50? Now, I feel like every race has like a rhyme, for when you date them. Like there's like once you go black, you never go back. Once you go yellow, you end up a little mellow. And once you go white, you end up with all the rights. It's true. But I was reading. No, my mom sent me a horoscope once, and I read through it. And we were actually reading it together over the phone. And she was going through. This is a weird one. This is weird, because it says whoever does not frown at you, they either want to have sex with you, or you should not be taking their advice. I was like, that is really weird. And I thought, if you're not frowning at me, I shouldn't be listening to you, or there's a sexual connection. And this is what I have to say about that. I took that into my life. Look, I'm a stand comedian. I'm Indian. It's hard, especially if you're not going through your traditional path to be an engineer or a doctor. I got a lot of crap for that. A lot of crap. A lot of people told me you can't do it. You're not going to make it. And now I'm here. And it's great. And to all the haters out there, I just got to say, once you go brown, you never frown.